To the younger generation, give some advice to the younger generation.
Go to school, take in your lesson, and don't be a sodomite nor a batty man.
Some advice to the younger generation.
Shalom, shalom. Who's on hold? The world prison and glory to Yahweh. Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Kakadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of great Milson and read well. Salutations to Yaki and preaching the truth to the four corners of the earth in sincerity. The brother Yaka will commentate on another lesson, Lord, and we find through His Spirit. Right? And the title going back into the vile affections, because it's not what mom's saying in the video were making what I really went into alone, but the comments, because she said, let's play it back one more time.
Some advice to the younger generation, give some advice to the younger generation.
Go to school, take in your lesson, and don't be a sodomite nor a batty man.
Right? And then when I go to the comment section, the first comment I see is, I agree with everything except the last part. Now, when you go into that, you understand that that is the generation that they're in. They're not no longer in the closet. You understand? They're no longer hiding it. They outside here showing off because of the society that built for them. You know, society built comfort for them. In every country, you know, the alphabets, they have a flag now. It's allowed because of Esau, Edom. And this is something that they think the Lord gonna just go from day to day, look at this and leave and be normal with that. And leave it as is. The Lord not normal with that. You understand? The Lord gave them up to that vile affection in the first place so that he could destroy them after. Right? And with that destruction, it's gonna come so severe on them. It could be through sicknesses, as we know. A lot of them are sicknesses due to the things that they're doing. Right? And the Lord gonna destroy them. They're comfortable, and not only this alone, that because some people might agree and say, I hope they hear. But then after, because this is a dude, right? But then after, when I scroll along, I see this girl here, or they see the colors. It says, boy, too late. That right through. You understand? So I was like, what? So first you see a dude, and then you see a, you understand? They don't agree. And the comments right through, they don't agree. You understand? They don't agree. A lot of people agree. And then some people say, well, it's too late for me. You understand? And this is mostly Jamaicans. So it does, you know, when you understand it, you understand this happening. The story that carry back to Benjamin when the priests when they wanted to sleep with the priests and etc. But the point I'm going into really is that the Lord gave them up to that vile affection because they didn't want to retain the Lord in their heart. You understand? That could be a reincarnated spirit, because it's something that not happening now but happening a long time. You understand? And headed into the times, we know that they're gonna push this, because they know that Esau know that he has the support of the LGs, and he has support of the rainbows. He have their support fully with the MOTB, because he supports them. He get them rights and get them things to come outside. They could call themselves anything. You understand? They're comfortable. Before, when somebody was at LG, you understand, on the low, they used to be on the low. They never used to come out and show themselves and profess themselves what they is, and they would hide and do their thing. Now they outside, right? The outside exposing themselves. They could care less. You understand? And some of them even famous. Right? But let me get into the scripture. Right? I'll start from Romans 1. I'll start from Romans 21. This is Romans 1 and 21. It says, because that when they knew power, they glorified him not as power, Right? They didn't care about the Lord, they didn't glorify him as the Lord. Right? Going back to way back even when the children of Israel, when Moses brought the laws to them and he just went away, and when he returned they built a calf. You understand? Going back into idol worship. They was having a carnival festival in the streets, you know. Then there was prisoners calf, they made a golden sculpture, etc. We know the story. And they were basically stepping away from what the Lord tell them to do. You understand? So think about it. In that time and this time, no different. It's just worse. Because they're outside more now. They more brave and bold with it. Right? It says because that when they knew power, they glorified them not as power, neither were thankful, but became vain in their imagination, and their foolish heart was darkened. That is it. From the time you step away from the Lord and this knowledge and this truth, you understand? Your heart begins to get darkened, because in my head I believe sometimes that Alazor, whatever how you pronounce his name, the ex-leader Sakari, I believe he was sincere at that point in time. You understand? But then he started to step away and his heart was darkened. And what happened? He became Pegatron. You understand? So stepping away from the truth ain't nothing good for you, only darkness, because the scripture says 7 more spirits more wicked than the one that was there before. The old spirit comes 7 more. And now your heart gets so dark and wicked that you're out here doing all sorts of atrocious acts, not having the Lord, because you're not walking in the Spirit. You understand? The scripture says, walk in the Spirit, and they will what? Fulfill the lust of the flesh. But if you're not walking in the Spirit, and you're changing the doctrine, and you're doing as you will, evil spirits are free to enter into you and make you do anything. Right? Let me continue. Verse 22, it says, professing themselves to be wise, they became fools, and changed the glory of the uncorruptible power, which is Yahweh, Yahushai, it says, into an image made like the corruptible man. Right? That is when they start to get idols. You know, some people worship literal people. You understand? And then there's famous people who are of the colorful people, and some people worship them. So they idolize them. They turn them into an idol. Right? And then that magnifies the colorful people on the earth. You understand? I'm gonna continue. It says, it says, into an image made like corruptible man, and to birds and 4-footed beasts and creeping things. We see it with the Hinduism, right? And we see it with the Hinduism, and that's how we know that they form anything. Idol worship is if anything they create other than, and this is Jake. Type with the Jake fully. Jake are the ones who was supposed to keep the law, not the heathens. The Lord could care less about the heathens. You understand? Jake was the one supposed to keep the law and worship the Lord, not focusing on idol worship, and not focusing on the other gods of the other nations, and not focusing on anything to keep them away from the truth. The scripture says, I have planted thee a noble vine. You understand? They were noble, we were nobles, knowing righteousness. How hast thou become a degenerate plant? And I'll bring that precept out. But I'm going to continue here. It says, verse 24, it says, wherefore power also gave them up to uncleanness through the lust of their own hearts. And that's what we get into it here. It's not they making a choice. The Lord gave them up to that. He unleashed them spirits on them because they're not right. Right? It says to dishonor their own bodies between themselves. And this is what we're getting into here. Verse 25. Who changed the truth of power into a lie, and worship and serve the creature more than the Creator, who is blessed forever. Right? They worship idols, they worship people, which is the creature, right? They worship man, and that is when they started getting into it. You understand? And all these famous, colorful people, the Lord soon put them to death and made them examples. Because there's a lot and a lot of colorful people on the earth right now. There's a lot. You understand? It's not a small number. The number when you look at them marches and them marching in the street, you realizing the large number of them. It's a large number. And the Lord soon, and I be looking at these things and saying why the Lord was an earthquake. Swallow them up. You understand? Because that's what they're gonna get. Debt. You understand? But you don't have a debt for them. Right, continuing, it says, for this cause, right, verse 26. For this cause, Yahweh gave them up unto vile affections, which is what? You get into it? For even the woman did change the natural use into that which is against nature. So women changing natural use, which is men having vile affections. To be affectionate is to have feelings for something, to love something, to care about something. And the Lord said vile affection, which was vile. Right? So that is men having feelings, and you'll see it. You go down into it, right? But we do, according to YouTube, we want to keep it clean, right? But this topic is not a clean thing. When I went into the comments, I get so mad, especially the first comment. I agree with everything mommy say about go to school, but then the last thing, don't be they don't agree with that. And that's how far they reach. Right, continuing. Right. Read about verse 26. For this cause Yahweh gave them up unto vile affections, for even the women did change the natural use into that which is against nature, and likewise also the men, leaving the natural use of the woman, burned in their lust toward another, men with men, working that which is unseemly, and receiving in themselves that recompense of the error which was meet, which is fit, which is AIDS, and whatever you want to call it. You understand? Because that is unnatural use. The Lord didn't, as the old saying, wasn't it's Adam and Eve. You understand? Not Steve. Lord, not for that. You understand? Right? But this is the recompense of you being wicked. That is a just recompense. You understand? And most of them in spirit, some oldest come back here doing the same thing. Right? Did I read verse 28? I read verse 28. It says, and even as they did not like to retain power in their knowledge, power gave them over to a reprobate mind to do those things which are not convenient, right? Being filled with all unrighteousness, fornication, wickedness, covetousness, maliciousness, full of envy, murder, debate, deceit, malignity, whisperers, backbiters, haters of power, right? Haters of God, which is Yahweh, despiteful, proud, boasters, inventors of evil things, disobedient to parents. Verse 31. Without understanding, covenant breakers, without natural affection, implacable, unmerciful. Whew. This is the judge. This is generation we talking about. This is the people we talking about. This is the level that the people is. You understand? Continuing, it says, who knowing the judgment of power, that they which commit such things are worthy of death, not only do the same, but have pleasure in them that do them. You understand? People take pleasure in this, and they don't have no natural affection. You understand? Some of them, they go into it with a super mindset that they want to do it to the best of their ability. You still have a lot to pay for, Because scripture says he is viler than the earth. He saw the vilest thing on the earth. You understand? That vile man. He has a lot to pay for. Right? Because what we just read there, all these things, whisperers, murderers, when you reach at that level of going against your natural order and becoming something is not, you can expect anything from that person. Because the spirits rampant in them. For you to turn, right? For you to turn, that means that you already have evil spirits on you. So it's free for any other one of them spirits that we just read to enter into you. For you to become a murderer, a thief, backbiter, you understand? These things, they don't have your watch me and shy. And it has some of them in churches. You understand? That we know the churches is not of your watch me and shy. Some of them in churches. Some of them leading groups. You understand? Some of them in marriages. And I personally getting fed up at looking at them walking the streets comfortable. You understand? Walking the streets comfortable. Walking holding their head up high. Boasting about what it is. Saying it out in the open. You understand? And then they would see some of them in fights with other people and you're watching it like, this is the situation, this is the condition that the Lord really have the place. You understand? The Lord said what? We're gonna get our precept. Right, so this here is 2nd Ezra 16 and 19. And it reads, behold, famine and plague, tribulation and anguish are sent as scourges for amendment. So this is what the Lord have in store for them. You understand? You see? Yeah. You don't have famine, plague, tribulation, anguish, all these things set up for them. You understand? You see? Read verse 20. Because verse 20 is a big part, right? It says, but for all these things they shall not turn from their wickedness, nor be always mindful of the scourges. So these fairies not gonna turn from being fairies, even when the Lord turn up the heat on them. You understand? They're gonna still be fairies. They're gonna still be wicked in their wickedness, boasting in their wickedness. They might be going through farming, or they might be going through some sort of thing. But as soon as a fairy find the next fairy in a corner, they're ready to do fairy shit. Right? I'll precept here. I think a book of Proverbs. Yeah. This is Proverbs 1. And I'll read from 24. I could read from higher. I'll read from 24, straight to the point. This Proverbs 1 and 24. It says, because I have called and he refused. Because that's what they're doing. They hear me telling them not to be these fairies, not to do certain things, and then they refuse. It's as the Lord calling. I have stretched out my hand, and no man regarded. But ye have set at naught all my counsel, and would none of my reproof. I also will laugh at your calamity. I will mock when your fear cometh. Right? Because you didn't want to stop. It was engulfed in your wickedness. Right? So the Lord will laugh when your fear cometh. Verse 27. When your fear cometh as desolation, and your destruction cometh as a whirlwind, when distress and anguish cometh upon you, then shall they call upon me, but I will not answer. They shall seek me early, but they shall not find me. For that they hated knowledge, and did not choose the fear of the Lord. They hated knowledge. They hated. They say, what are you coming to me with this for? You understand? Save that. Save your breath. As the scripture, as you know, there's a scripture when you read it in the NLT. Right? Let me see where I reach. For the verse 29, for that they hated knowledge and did not choose the fear of the Lord. Because the fear of the Lord is what? Keeping the Lord's statutes and commandment. So they didn't choose to keep it, they choose to ignore it. Right? Continuing as it was 30, they would none of my counsel, they despise all my reproof, which is we reproof in the world. Right? Verse 31, therefore shall they eat of the fruit of their own way and be filled with their own devices. So in other words, do your thing. But you know that you have the mark of the beast ready for you. You have famine ready for you. You have plagues and pestilence ready for you. Fairies. Right? It says, for the turning away of the simple shall slay them, and the prosperity of fools shall destroy them. But whoso hearkeneth unto me shall dwell safely, and shall be quiet from fear of evil. That is it. So this wasn't really had to be a long video. Lord willing, it was edifying, quick and straight to the point. When I kala yamla ala haynawa, Yahweh Bashimi Awishai, Bashimi Kakodash, the word and city as an apostle of great meal, so I rule well. Salutation to Yaki and preaching the truth to the four corners of the earth in sincerity. Shalom.